Sorry, I wasn't supposed to be standing there. Okay, hi everyone, how are you? How's it going? Nice, thanks for coming today. So she said I'm going to be talking about user experience. This is a workshop, so hopefully we can get to the actual workshopping phase that I planned out for us, but I thought it was more important to really spend some time talking about what user experience is and to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page and knows enough about it in order to do the activities, because it's hard to do the activities if you don't actually know what you're doing. So, where'd my clicker go? There it is. Okay, great. So, Chelsea Yim, I'm a freelance UX designer and researcher. My undergraduate degree is actually in biology because I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist, but it's actually my parents who wanted me to be a pharmacist. So I ended up changing my whole career. I ended up getting my master's in interactive media, and that's where I got all my UX skills. It's actually partly due to that guy who's trolling me in the back getting a drink, Chris. He's the one who kind of introduced me to user experience through a conversation we were having. He used to be a software developer, and now he's not. So just a fun fact about Chris. So I ended up getting into UX design and research because I was really interested in how I could use it to help, I guess, marginalized communities, especially around accessibility. I was working with the blind and visually impaired community at the time, and that's what really inspired me to kind of make a career change. So for the people who don't know about it and people who do, does anyone want to just shout out what UX might be? Oh, and you know what, actually I should give you a rundown of what we're going to do. So we're just going to have like a quick chat about this, hopefully do a workshop, and I want it to be like a super informal environment where you can just kind of shout things out. I don't like formal environments whatsoever. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to just interject, okay? So people, what is UX? Or there is like a right and wrong answer, but at this point I just want to hear what a couple of people think. Anyone? User experience. And what does that, what do you think that means? What do you think it encapsulates? Yeah.
The way that I describe it is ergonomics for the mind.
Whoa, that's actually really good. Yeah, I like it. Cool. So UX is a lot of different things. Let's start with the regular traditional definition of it. So Nielsen-Norman Group is probably one of the most referenced and biggest names in the field of UX, both research and design. They're basically the pioneers of the field. I think Don Norman's the one who coined the term user experience. So a lot of people will reference them, and they're a really reliable source of UX information, but what they define it as is all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So I think it was Don Norman who gave a talk and basically said a lot of UX designers will say, when people ask what they do, they say, oh, well, I design websites, I design apps, which is true to some extent, but that's not all they do. UX is it's way more than that. A good example is if you think about Apple products. Do people in here have Apple products, or are you guys all like PC, Linux users? Apple? Anyway, so Apple is a good way to think about it because the way that they target their audience through commercials, and then when you enter the store, what the store looks like, how it's laid out, how they allow you to interact with their devices. When you buy everything, it's not like you're having a hard time putting it in your car. Everything's in a discrete little box and it all fits and it's beautiful. Then you take it out of the box, it's easy to set up and it's easy to learn, right? So that's like experience. It's how somebody experiences your company from start to finish. So not all of you guys are business students, but it's applicable to business in many, many ways, and it's actually applicable to pretty much all aspects of how we interact with our world, as you'll see. Okay, so that's like the textbook definition of what UX is. I thought about it when I was writing, or when I was creating this presentation. It's like, what is UX in my perspective? It's a lot of different things. I actually think that one of the most difficult questions that I'm asked is, what do you do for a living? I still haven't really figured out what my elevator pitch is, because you want to be able to explain to somebody really succinctly and not ramble on, but it deals with so many different things that it's almost a little bit difficult and almost sometimes impossible to actually convey what it is you do to people. A lot of it is problem identification and problem solving. So if you aren't good at solving problems, then UX is going to be a nightmare, because you are solving not only simple problems, but very complex problems, and you're also figuring out, I guess you're finding the problems that exist that you may not have noticed to begin with. Another thing is that this is what I love about UX, is that it's a good mixture of data and creativity. So you have to be able to ideate and you have to be able to innovate. You have to think of ways that people will effectively and efficiently complete tasks and solve a need for them. A lot of it is a process. We'll talk about design thinking. Do you guys know what design thinking is, or do you use it at all at work or in school? Sort of. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. But UX is really a process. I think when people design products, a lot of times they'll jump into it and be like, I really want to make an app. And they'll jump into it without doing the research. Yes, the research, the preliminary work. And really that part of the process is probably the most important, because what happens, you design a bunch of stuff, you create the assets, you have a developer make everything, and you find out that you did it for the wrong person, or it doesn't meet the needs of your audience, or you design something that you want and it's not what your audience wants. You're not designing for your user, because that's who matters with, user experience. It matters who your user is, and it matters that you identify them. What else? Fulfilling a need, obviously. It's data-driven. This is like a great part of user experience, is that it is all rooted in data. Whether it's qualitative data or quantitative data, we use it, and it's what drives our design. You don't design without having the data to back it up. And I think nowadays that's especially important, because everyone's interested in having data. Like, where's the data to back that up? Are these decisions sound? They are, because you can show them, these are the statistics I have, or this is what people have said through my interviews. This is the way we want to go. A lot of it is psychology as well. So understanding people's behaviors, why they do certain things, understanding, I guess, their motivations and why they choose to download your app, or why they choose to go to your website, and what keeps them coming back. And then usefulness. So usefulness, I think, is like at the heart of UX. And when we talk about usefulness, I think about it in terms of two parts. So usefulness being utility. So does it create a need for somebody? Like, either does it fulfill a need that already exists, or do you create a need? So let's think about Instagram. We don't need Instagram, right? Like, no one's gonna die because they don't have Instagram. But they did a really good job at fulfilling a need and creating a need. Now it's like everyone has Instagram, and most people can't go one day without being on it, just because, like, what's the need? It's social connection with people, but that's something that didn't previously exist. So that's a great example of creating a need. And then the other part of usefulness is usability. So what, you have Instagram, do people know how to use it? Can they download it and figure out how to use it immediately, or do they need to read an instruction manual? What's the point of having something that looks beautiful and does something really well if you can't figure out how to use it? So UX is really trying to find the balance between those two things. Does that sound understandable to you guys so far? Does anyone have any questions? No? Making sense? Great. Okay, so UX can be broken down into two separate parts. So one is design and one is research. Usually it depends like what kind of company you work for. If you work for a really big company, if you work for Google, for example, the design aspect, you'll be a UX designer, but it'll even be broken down further. Like, are you a visual designer, an interactive designer? And researcher, or are you a researcher? If you work for a smaller company, a lot of times you do all of those things yourself. So I'm a freelancer, so I do both of these things myself. So let's talk a little bit about UX design. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see a job posting and it says UX design / UI designer. Do you guys ever see people talk about UX designers that way? UI design is definitely part of UX design, but that's not it. I think it's a little bit misinformed in terms of how, that means something. That means that people are assuming that a UX designer just develops or designs the interface. And that's just not true. There's all these different aspects. So one is interaction design. We'll use Instagram because everybody kind of has everyone's familiar with Instagram, right? So interaction design. If you like a photo and the little heart shows up for a moment, that's an interaction design thing. You're designing the way a person will interact with the product and how the product responds back. Another thing is like if you get a like on your photo, you know, on the menu bar, there's the heart and there's a little dot next to it if you haven't looked at your like yet. That's another interaction design thing. It's a way that the system is communicating with the user how, like what's going on or how do I convey this information. Another thing is visual design. So visual design is clearly interface design, how something looks, but again, it's much more than that. Micro interactions is kind of like what the Instagram example I gave you. Architecture, so site architecture is really important because, do you guys know what site architecture is? A little bit? So all the computer science people probably do to some extent. Say, for example, let's talk about Instagram again. All of the content on Instagram, how it's laid out, and also where it lives within the app. So in the home feed, with the home feed, when they were planning Instagram, where they thought about it, do I have to put the home feed in its own menu, or do I contain other things in that home feed? So it's taking all of the information and figuring out exactly where it lives. Flow is another thing. So that's how somebody goes about using the application. At what point do they enter the system? And at what point do they exit the system? And when they're in the system, how do they go about using the app? So like Instagram, for example, this is just one flow, right? Somebody opens their application and they want to add a picture. So they press the add a picture button, they select their picture, and then they put out a filter, put a tag on it, change it, blah, 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 and then upload it. That's one flow out of however many flows there can be. So that's another thing that you design, because when you're creating an app or a website, you want to know exactly how somebody will go about achieving the goal that you are setting for them, right? And then one thing I didn't put on, but I should have, because I mean, this is something that I care probably the most about, is accessibility. So accessibility meaning that you're making things available to people who may have a disability, or I guess just the world we live in. Oh gosh, that's my husband. I don't know why he's here. Hi. He's not in business and doesn't care about UX, but he's here anyway. So hi. He's here for the 5-foot-long sub, basically. Okay, anyway, about accessibility. So that is, to me, is like one of the most important things, because a lot of our world designs thinking that people are all the same, and that's just not the case. So you want to be inclusive in your design, and if we can just sort of get in the idea, or get in the mode that we design accessibility things first, features first, then we don't have to worry about going back and be like, oh shoot, my website isn't accessible, and now I'm going to get sued. So not only is it getting sued, but allowing other people to have access to the things that everybody else has access to. Instagram, I don't know if you guys noticed, they actually added talking about Instagram again, has a little option where you can add a descriptor tag to it. Have you guys seen that at all? Yeah, so that's for people who are blind or using screen readers, because the screen reader will read it back to them and explain to them exactly what the picture conveys. So it's a good way to include them.